This is being streamed. This evening's meeting will be streamed to YouTube. With the difficult decisions facing the board in the next couple of years regarding finance, we felt it was appropriate to make sure that we were providing these to the public just as we would provide our regular monthly board meetings. So when we have a specific CAL for finance, we will be making it available through YouTube and online. Thank you. What's it looking like, Nick? We're good to go. Camilla?
So you've got the PowerPoint at your seat, and then there are 3 exhibits that support some of the statistics that we're showing that compare our district to districts across the state. So tonight our agenda is we will do the comparisons with overall costs, enrollment, and cost per student with other statewide districts. Then we'll have a slide on our plan for the finance and budgetary review moving forward. And then we'll start in for tonight's review, which tonight our focus is on student activities, which includes athletics and our clubs. And our plan for moving forward with these finance discussions is to break them into various areas. So it's not like you're drinking from from a fire hydrant, where it's just we're bombarding you with lots of information. So we're trying to break it up so you can have a little more time to think about different areas as we go. So we'll get started with the overview. So we have 3 points of comparison with districts statewide. Our comparison with enrollment, which we are the 32nd district out of 499 in our size. And overall expenditures, it drops down to 57 of 496. Now, the information on here is based on 2021 actual figures and the enrollment at October 1st. And I pulled all this information off PDE's website. Anybody can pull it down, anyone can see it. It's all public information, but we're comparing apples to apples this way. The reason there are only 496 districts for expenditures is, don't ask me how this happened, but there were 3 districts who did not submit their AFR in time to get posted. One of them, I believe, was Central Cambria. Don't know what happened, but theirs is not part of the information. So it dropped for expenditures. They're only 496. And then our per pupil cost is 475th out of 496. We have been working so hard and so diligently over the years, past boards, current administration, past administrations, to keep our costs down. We are at $15,958 per student, which there are only 21 other districts that have a cost per student lower than ours.
Point of clarification, this does include the ESSER's funding, correct?
Correct. For every district across the state.
Yes.
This is apples to apples. I've put the sources below. I can email this presentation to you all, and then you can just click on the link to be able to access it if you're interested. But I added the exhibits so you can use them as reference as we're moving forward. And if you want to see how we compare to other districts, Exhibit 1 shows where we stand with enrollment, and then it shows all the other almost 500 districts, but their enrollment. But I also included the actual expenditures, the percentage of poverty, the budgeted amounts for 2021. And if you look at some of those, there are big variations. Ours was, we budgeted 116 million and we actually spent 115 million. So our budget was pretty close to what we actually spent. Then you'll see our per pupil cost. And I had also broken out special education costs because our special ed population is larger than a lot of other districts, but you can look at other districts that are our size or within our ranges and see that we've done a really good job of keeping our special ed expenditures down as well. Exhibit 2 is the expenditure value, highest to lowest, where we're at 57 out of 496. And then Exhibit 3 is the per pupil cost. And you have to flip over to the last page to find Altoona on that one, because we're at the very lowest per pupil cost. So we broke it down for purposes of the slide to for the presentation to be able to see 5 districts or 4 districts above us and 5 below us. And they're similar enrollment numbers, but look how over to the column on the right of how much higher their expenditures are than ours. I understand they're spread across the state, and those districts on the eastern part of the state are going to have higher costs, but Center State College, 154 compared to our 115, and they have 600 fewer students than we do. Then our per pupil costs compared with other districts of similar enrollment, and these are the 10 on either side of us, and we are at the lowest cost. Again, some of them are in the eastern part of the state, but there's State College again, Harrisburg, center of the state, Lehigh, Erie, and we're at the lowest per pupil cost. And then this one is comparison of districts with similar expenditures. So this is all within like the 110 million to 120 million, and we're right in the middle with 115 million. But look at their enrollments. We have 7,000 students, and they range from 4,100 to 6,300. Their poverty's nobody's poverty is near ours. The per pupil cost is much higher than ours. This is just, I think it's a good indication of showing how much we can do, how much we are doing with the budget that we are working with. After tonight, well, tonight we're going to look at the student activity accounts, which include the athletics, arts, music, drama, and the clubs. These are all important to our kids because it helps them build the connections to us. We've invested a lot in our clubs, in our athletics. Over the past couple of years, we've added baseball teams at the middle school. We've added, for safety and security for the kids, we added an additional assistant swim coach, an additional golf coach. Phil was going to be here tonight to help fill in some of the gaps, but he couldn't make it. So Brad, if you think of anything that I've missed.
Athletic teams, part of which was to comply with Title IX. We most recently, the board approved a girls golf team along with the accompanying coaches and along with the expenditures that goes along with operating those teams. In addition to that, we've been try to be very fiscally sound in looking at our coaches and how we're allocating them for each of our sports, and looking at, as we said, with the responsibilities growing within those in the safety and security of our kids, to make sure that we're providing not only quality athletic facilities and athletic programming and equipment, and making sure that we are competitive in all aspects. And I think we've done, a really good job of balancing the needs of our teams and the needs of our coaches, and providing kids with an outstanding experience, not just in athletics, but also in the arts. Anyone that's been to a concert or to one of Ben's productions, or seen our results when the Isaacs are passed out. I mean, annually we are representing the region and the district unbelievably well with what we're putting out in terms of performances and actual results from our student populations. And the bulk of experiences we can provide kids in the way of club opportunities and experiences for really any and all interest. We really emphasize that with kids and having opportunities for every kid to be involved and really make the most of their high school and their junior high school and elementary experience. Phil's injured, so if there's anything, I have him available. If there are any specific questions as we move through this, he's available. He's actually watching the stream online, and we can get him if there are any specific questions for him.
Mr. Hatch, I have a question. With current research, is there any evidence indicating a connection between students' involvement or connectivity to the school and staying in school?
Absolutely. So one of the things we've been talking about specifically is graduation rates and dropout rates, and looking at school connectedness. And one of the biggest ways that kids can be connected is finding something to relate to and to build relationships. And our clubs and activities and our sports and all of our performing arts programs provide those opportunities for that connectedness. There's also research, and has been for years, about student academic performance being directly tied to students who are involved in activities being at a much higher rate than those students that are not. So as especially coming out of COVID and with really a focus on social and emotional learning, it is a vital part of what we are providing, not just as an academic institution, but really teaching the whole child and what that means in terms of helping them grow emotionally and spiritually and socially. All of these pieces are a vital aspect of that, and they're really not exclusive to one or the other. You can't have academic programs that are as effective as they can be without having all of those other pieces, because they all interrelate with one another. And research has and continues to support that. In fact, even more with mental health and all of the things that are coming out of a lot of the COVID research and a lot of the learning loss research that is coming out, it is more vital now than ever to have students identify connectedness to their school institution in terms of setting them up for success as they move through their schooling.
So would it be possible for the board to see information such as total number of students involved in student activities, plus of that $15,958.49, what is the dollar amount based on just the student activity piece?
So in the upcoming slides, we drill down into it more. And so tonight we are going to take a deeper dive into the student activity expenditures by sport, by object code, or by line item, if you will. Then in October, we will look at maintenance, custodial, and building expenditures. Those are usually the 2600 function. Transportation and contractual obligations will be our focus in January. And then we'll sort of wrap it up in February with trying to get a feel for the direction the board wants us to take as far as looking at areas where we may be able to reduce expenditures. So tonight, with the focus of athletics, they are only 1.17% of our total expenditures. And we do bring in revenue from our ticket sales and donations, and the net budgetary impact for this current year was $1.4 million for athletics. Of that, $450,000 it's not broken out in our counting system. It's the trainers and the clerical, and we'll go into that in a next slide, but we don't allocate them specifically to a sport. They just fall into this overall district cost. But then there are sport-specific expenditures where the coaches are charged directly to the sport. The meals and the transportation are charged directly to the sport, and the same with the supplies. So you'll be able to see how much we've invested in the various sports. Please note on this does not include anything that we've done for facilities. It does not include any of the improvements at Mansion or at the tennis courts or the sanding of the gym floors. All of those are separate in their facility type. These are the operational expenses for the student activities, and in particular sports right now. So those non-sport specific, the $450,000 is made up of salary and benefits for the trainers, managers, athletic workers, and administrative support, which includes Nanette Cumming. We did have some pool equipment expenditures, mid-pen memberships and other association dues, which we could allocate those to the various sports, but we haven't. They just fall into this district-wide pot. Equipment maintenance also fell into that. Physical therapy and all physicals are going into this district pot, as well as Huddle, which is used for various sports. It's a software that they use for statistics. The Letterman jackets, advertising, small equipment, and computers make up $70,000 of that district cost. And then other purchase services, we have student insurance. We had a shuttle back and forth to Mansion, fuel, and then we sometimes pay teams to come to us because that's actually more cost effective than us paying meal money and travel to travel to outside teams. So the breakout by object or by line item is in salaries and benefits. That's the majority of it. The coaching stipends, and we have multiple coaches in every sport. Travel and meals, that includes cruisers outside of 70 miles from the district, and the meal money is still at $5 per student when they're on the road. We looked at it a couple of years ago, talking about did we want to eliminate meal money? It would save us maybe $40,000. We do, if you go back to our poverty level on one of the first slides, we're at, I think, 61 or 65%. A lot of our kids, it's only $5, but it still can get them something. There has been talk at past athletic council meetings of raising it. Back when Mr. Lockard was still here, he wanted to raise it. That's a decision the board can make, but we're still trying to look at other creative ways to get food for the kids without doing this $5, handing them $5, because this life of a $5 bill has about 25 steps from setting it up and then Phil or Lori going to the bank and getting the $5 and coming back, and the clerical aides counting it out, and then the coaches having to give it. So we're always looking for creative ways to still help the kids, but not be such a overhead nightmare. But that we can talk about in athletic council.
And just to chime, what we typically would do and what coaches have done, especially when we're extended travel 2.5 hours away, is they're making arrangements with a pizza or a sandwich company, and they're getting a discounted rate. We get cases of water, so that we really stretch that $5 per kid quite a long way to make sure that they're fed adequately and that they have beverage and things as well. And the number of coaches that then supplement that out of their own pocket pretty much is 100%. They're all doing that, providing the kids with additional snacks and other things. And I know our booster clubs and our team-specific boosters help support that as well.
So on the travel, that does make up the majority of that expense, when only about 40,000 of that is for meals. The remainder is for busing for the out-of-district travel, and it is costly. And several years ago, the board had recommended that we extend it to 90 miles. Anyone within 90 miles, we would use a yellow bus out from 70. Well, we had a girls' team that had the yellow bus broke down 90 miles over, within 90 miles away. No lights, no restrooms. Took a long time for them to finally get a backup bus. And then it was revisited and it was pulled back to 70. So we have looked into a lot of different ways. We've explored a lot of different ways to try to save money. What Phil is talking about this year is with COVID, we were keeping the teams separate. So if one student got it, it didn't take out 2 or 3 teams at a time. What he's proposing for this year is that we're combining teams again. If soccer and I can't remember the exact example he gave, but if a JV team and a 7th grade team are both going to the same location and they're playing on different fields, they could go together. It will cut down on the cost of the transportation. So we're increasing efficiencies, but still providing that level of safety and security and comfort by taking a cruiser. Plus, there's also a lot more storage for gear. There are some teams that just can't take a yellow bus because there's so much gear. So again, it's one of those things. We've looked at it. We'll be happy to provide you with more information, but those are the things that we've discussed internally and are trying to find ways to make it the most cost effective and keep the cost down as much as possible. So the next one is supplies. Big A provides a lot of support for supplies and equipment, particularly in gear, is my understanding, for every sport. So that helps keep the district costs low. The professional services and officials, according to Phil, we're having trouble finding officials because our price isn't, maybe not competitive, but it's not high enough. So we may need to look at that. I would say it's not necessarily an area we would want to look at to cut, because that wouldn't be beneficial to our teams. Entry fees, they are what they are. The equipment maintenance, there's required maintenance on helmets and masks.
Shoulder pads, helmets, there's reconditioning on an annual basis. They have to be certified for use.
So we try to keep those costs down, and the same thing with with equipment. In the past couple of years, or past few years, Phil's done a very good job of rainmaking, for lack of a better term, of finding. We had, I think it was Devin Fershing's parents or family donated a wrestling mat. The district did pick up a couple of them, but we had donations for one of the wrestling mats, which was worth about $18,000. Is that correct?
Just to be clear on something, so what we provide in terms of uniforms, that is district provided for the most part. So when you see kids with t-shirts and warm-ups and those kind of things, those are all fundraised for and or provided by Big A. So those are really monies that are generated by students. So when you see our teams, and our teams always look very good, they represent us very well. They are outfitted primarily with money that they fundraise and or is generated by Big A and those sports-specific booster clubs. The district responsibility and what is pretty much a uniform replacement, which is on a cycle, and equipment replacement, which is on a cycle as well. So we're providing the necessities to operate and run the sport, but the extras and the things that you see, the hoodies and the sweatsuits and those types of things, are all being generated by sports-specific, either fundraising and or booster clubs.
And one of the other things, back to travel, that Dr. Priatel actually started the first or second year he was here. The music parents are in charge of the concessions at Mansion, and we had an agreement with them that a certain percentage of their profit would come back to the district. And all their purchases and all their receipts had to run through the business office. And when Dr. Priatel came, he said, and we were looking for efficiencies in the business office, and we ended up being able to combine some other positions, and we eliminated a position. One of the things, since we were eliminating or combining positions, he got with the music parents, and Brad was part of it as well. And Dr. P can speak to it if I don't have it correctly, but we let them have all of their proceeds, keep it all, for taking a cheer bus was it a cheer bus to three or four?
They are to go to all realistic away games. I mean, they may miss one a year, et cetera, but the idea being they go to the away games, and likewise they take, I believe, I'm not sure whether the cheerleaders are on their bus or the cheerleaders are on a football bus, but the cheerleaders are covered by that. And so it improved their presence at those events, and at the same time didn't generate additional costs to the district, because we don't pay for any of the cruisers when the band travels. It all comes out of the concession stand monies.
So that was one of the cost savings measures that Dr. P put in place when he first got here. So here is the cost, cost per sport. This includes coaching, the supplies, everything that's on that previous slide, travels, the meals, entry fees, and track is the highest. Football would be higher, but this is net of the proceeds, net of the gate. So football season tickets, the sales of those are offsetting the costs, and it brings it down to 155,000. And I think the next slide, where you can see the number of athletes per for junior high and high school compared to the expense, which is over in the left-hand column. And then the cost per athlete is for high schools in the far right column, and the next to the right is the cost per athlete for the junior high. We have a lot of kids in track, and it's a year-round sport. To me, this is just a testament to the programs we have. We have, over 1,100 kids, almost 1,200 kids in junior high and high school in our sports, and I think that's the proud tradition of Altoona, is having strong sports teams and a lot of variety and a lot of options. The next piece is on the student activities, because sports aren't for everyone. Not every student is an athlete, or they may not be able to compete on a varsity level. So we have other options with music, art, and drama, and it's only 0.29% of our total 2021 expenditures. Our 2021 current year expenditures for art were $21,000. Drama was just extremely low, less than $4,000, and music at $56,000. It's just a total for all of those is $81,000. And then if you add in the stipends for all the student activities, and there are approximately 1,100 kids. I don't have all the rosters of all the kids for the current year, because not all the clubs have met and haven't turned in their rosters yet, but there are around 1,100 other kids, not athletes, kids in clubs and art and music and drama, and that cost is only $310 per pupil cost.
One of the things that we should probably note here too is the costs, a lot of the costs that are above the blue line, for lack of better terminology, are included in curriculum as well. So these arts programs are also part of our curriculum, so they benefit the students' education as well as their student activities portions. So this number is not all 3,200 expenses. Some of them are in our curricular pieces.
And so if you compare, let's wrap this back around. We started with comparing our total expenditures and enrollment and per pupil cost to other districts across the state. So as we're comparing our 3,200 expenditures to other districts, we are 34 out of 299 in our actual student activity spending. Correct. I'm sorry, 32 out of 499. There are two other districts that are in similar size that we used for comparison. Wilson School District, they are 18 out of 499 and at 2.2 million. And Dallastown is lower than we are, 76 out of 499, but 1.4. But still, overall comparison, they're all under 2% of the total budget. And we rank very low, 414 out of 499 in our spending per student at 242. And then you can see the other comparison with Wilson at 348 and Dallastown at 217. Here's a broader state comparison of this 3,200 function, which again covers all student activities. And we're not the highest and we're not the lowest. Allentown has a lot of kids and there's cost per student is $114, but ours, as you scroll down, we're 34. We've got a lot of kids and our cost is lower than Garnet Valley right below it, with almost half as many kids. So in this particular function, I think it bears out that we're also doing less with more. We're doing more with less. And to wrap tonight up, in summary, back to the per pupil cost across the state, we're at $15,000. We're 400 and I have to find my exhibit 3, 475 out of 496 in our per pupil cost. And if we were looking to cut expenditures in student activities by an arbitrary number of 10%, it would only add $155,500 to the budget, but it would directly affect students. That's not to say that we won't look at every way we can to maximize taxpayer dollars, as one of the examples with trying to get multiple teams on one cruiser, looking at ways to get the meal money in a more efficient manner. You see the bids, you have the opportunity to review the bids for, you'll see them for fall sports and spring sports, and I think for winter sports as well. So we're putting them out for competitive bid. And if there are any lines that you would like to see more detail on, just let me know and we can, we'll dig it up and provide it to you.
Camilla, thanks a lot. You know, this whole conversation with the 4 areas we're going to be reviewing the rest of the year was generated by discussions by some board members that didn't particularly care how we handled the budget this year. They didn't feel that there was enough delving into the budget for budget cuts. So here's one area with athletics. If anybody sees anything with athletics that they think should be cut or looked at, or, you know, let's talk about it now so we can see what we can do. As far, you know, you look what we have and where we're at, I think we're pretty good. I think we're in pretty good shape. And, you know, other than a track coach that makes too much money, I think that's what brings the whole track program over. But I just think that, you know, this is a nice preview. And if anybody has any problems or wants to talk about what we could save, let's do it now.
I have a question on the students that are at the poverty level. How many do we have a statistic of how many of them participate in these activities?
I don't have it broken out at my fingertips, but I think Phil may have that information.
Okay.
Phil probably would not have that information because that is not information that we would identify a student as being like a free and reduced student. That information's for cafeteria purposes at this point only, and really for state reporting. That's not something that we would tag a student as being.
They're not flagged
They're
in
not
or
flagged
otherwise
as being
marked as
disadvantaged,
being,
correct. But I would
free
say
and
in
reduced
general,
lunch.
if 61% of our kids are free and reduced, that roughly 61% of our students that are participating in any extracurricular activity would be. Now, if we had, once again, one of the things that we always look at is we charge a very nominal registration fee for our students once per year, $50, participate in any activity throughout the year. If a student is not able to meet that, we cover that for that student. We have funds generated, we have accounts set aside to cover students that have an economic disadvantage. So there's never a time where a student is denied access to something because of not being able to pay.
Well, and that scholarship for those registration fees is where I thought he might be able to gather that. If he knew he had to give 40%, waive the fees for 40% or get them covered, that's where I thought he might be able to gather it.
And I'd like to say as a parent and former educator that there are benefits of student activities that aren't shown by numbers. And I think my own children who participated in activities benefited greatly. But for many kids, that's their window to the future. That's their only hope of being able to move on. And I think the other thing that's very important is that coaches are motivators. And the people who coach not only the sport activities, but the drama clubs and the music activities and so forth, they encourage the kids to do well in school academically. And they'll ask, well, why are you missing? Or I heard you're having problems in your math class. How can we help you? You know, they really help kids in so many ways that are not shown by numbers. So I agree with Dave. Anybody thinks there's things there we should look at cutting from this area, they need to talk about it. You know, because I think the last budget, I saw some people comment that, board members comment that we didn't discuss cuts. Well, let's discuss cuts. What do you want to cut out of this particular area?
You know, I like to say the Big A Booster Club, you can't thank them enough for what they're doing in the school district. When you're at a football game in the 50-50s, over $1,000, that's over $1,000 going to the kids for uniforms, shirts. I say once again, Big A, thank you. You know, we really need you. And being involved with sports for 5 years here at Altona, another thing I like to say thank you is the coaches who out of their own pocket help these kids with meals. You might have a kid that's, has a metabolism like a hummingbird and just has to eat a little bit more. That $5 doesn't do it. They'll reach in their own pocket. I've seen it firsthand, and here, get something good to eat. So there are coaches out there that help the kids.
Understanding that these activities, in many cases for some of our top end athletes, that's the only reason they come to school. And our secondary, as much as we don't want it to be secondary, we don't want academics to take a back seat, but at the same time, they have to have a certain level of academic standing to be able to participate. And likewise, this gives them a purpose. It gives them a sense of belonging. They understand sacrifice, dedication, and teamwork across all of these activities. And you think about it was approximately 2,000 students, and there are some crossover, but you think about 2,000 students in the junior high and the high school are actively involved in these activities, and the impact that they're gaining both socially, emotionally, and as a sense of community and learning citizenship and responsibility, it's huge. I mean, I know I've got a coach there, I've got a coach there. I know there's a lot of other guys who've been involved, and you know what I'm talking about. when a kid is a part of something where their sacrifice has meaning and a greater meaning than just their own personal impact, that is an uplifting experience that cannot be that cannot be reproduced on any test in any classroom. And being someone who experienced that, and everybody in the faculty knows they know my elementary report cards from a presentation we did, realized that I was not the most academic of students, but that energy and that dedication, once you learn how to build and you learn how to achieve, it crosses over and has a lot of impact in a lot of other areas, which are very, very important when it comes to a child being a quality member of the community and an upstanding citizen.
Well, the one thing I'd like to see is the salary cap on the coaches, because a lot of them, they're sticking around. If they're making 10,000, that's tough to give up, and they'll just stick around because that's 10,000 that goes into their pension. So I'd like to see a cap on what they can make, and then also I'd like to see it pulled out of their teaching contracts, and a lump sum each year given to Phil for coaches that he divides up, and we kind of control it that way instead of that 3% that they get just because they're a teacher and also a coach. I talked to Phil about this, and I think he agrees.
There are different ways to look at athletics, and if the board wants to discuss, how we handle the athletic stipends and the coaches' stipends, I think that's a discussion. First, we start that at athletic council, and then in turn it becomes then a piece of negotiations. There was a time when the coaches were not part of negotiations. They have been part of negotiations since I've been here. But the reality is, every time we move it, unless there's a dedicated reason to move it, we always end up spending more, because you pay to shift it and you pay to put it back. I think we have to take a really deep dive on that, because you are 100% correct. A coach with a lot of tenure gets a very high stipend, but likewise, a coach with a lot of tenure probably has a very strong track record of their impact with kids also. So it's a double-edged sword. And when you cap some of them, then 3-4 years down the road, you're looking at the fact your salaries are no longer competitive. So there's a lot of other issues that we need to look at. I'm not opposed, and I realize that some of our coaches who've been here for a while do make very generous coaches stipends. But at the same time, I know that a lot of them have built programs, and yes, that was a bonus for them to be remunerated that way, but the kids got it back tenfold in the fact that didn't have a second or third year coach every 2 or 3 years. We had someone who built a program for 15, 20 years, and you had a lot of success. So you got to kind of balance all that out.
Can I just say, I think tonight is, this is a foundational thing as we move towards next year when we're doing a budget. This is not an end, but a beginning. And it's just to help, especially new board members like Dave and Stephanie and Chris and myself understand all this stuff. This is great, and I really appreciate all the work put into this. It's helpful to me because the way I look at this is you talk to people in the public, and you're elected by the people in the community, and you want to be able to defend your decisions and have the support to defend the decisions you make, because they're all impactful to people, in the form of taxes and the services that we deliver to their kids. So this is a great beginning. I want to get to the point where we're all well versed in this stuff, and because we just have to be prepared for the time when there will be difficult decisions somewhere down the line that need to be made. And the more that we all know all these things is great. The one question I had that I asked in executive session was, I'd be curious what our ranking is in terms of our local ability to generate tax revenue. I know the percentage is around 25% of our budget comes. I'd be curious to know where we rank in the state on that.
Sue has that, and I was thinking too, in terms of as we're progressing through these different meetings, that we would hit the expenditures
Great.
and then wrap it up with the revenues at the end. Because we can, if there's anything, we can, we can get you that information, but I mean, the focus of revenue, I'm picturing at the end.
Okay.
Because the departments are going to be building their budgets here soon. Seems like we just closed a budget and now it's time to open up next year's budget. So if there are things that, if there's a direction that we need to take, or the direction that we need to tell department chairs or the buildings, you need to cut this is the time, so as they're building their budgets for next year. And then the revenue is, after we know what cuts we can make, then the revenue is the next piece, but we can get that information.
That's great,
for you.
thank you. I mean, this is a great start. I mean, my thinking is that, it appears that we're doing all right here in terms when we compare ourselves to other school districts. So if we're doing that and we still have a deficit to address, then what are we gonna do? And if that means like we have to be more active in Harrisburg, I don't, I haven't really delved into the funding formula. Is it fair? Do we need to, be more politically active in Harrisburg? I would be glad to be involved in that, but, that would be the next step for me, is maybe we need to just be, as a board, more vocal with our state legislators, and we'll see what this election bears, but we could be challenged after that, who knows? So, but thank you. This is a great start.
Now, we plan in the next series of finance cows, Camilla laid out the big picture. We're also going to revisit all the potential cuts we proposed in 2020 and other aspects of the budget, so the board has a chance to take another fresh look at those. So
We had a proposal to do potential cuts as far as coaches go, as far as, Eric's idea, but you can't stop there. You have to go look at the other activities, student activities. You just can't stop at athletics. You got to keep on going down to club sponsors and different things like that. So that's one thing you can look at if you want to do the cuts. When we do the final budget, we could review what Eric asked to do.
we can start to put those pieces together. That's not an issue.
That's all that's on the agenda. Meeting is adjourned.